Hey, welcome back. My name is Mark. I'm from Woodworkers Source, and white oak is hands down one of my favorite woods to build with right now because it has this beautiful combination of color, grain, and strength. It just never disappoints in my opinion. Like for starters, okay, the color. Let's take that. The color offers this natural warmth, and it's just perfect. It's not too dark, it's not too light, and the grain and the texture, they're subtle, they're interesting, just makes the wood really versatile. Like you can complement it with dark woods like walnut or light woods like maple, and it just won't be too garish. It'll be just right. Plus, white oak is it's incredibly strong, really durable, and it still machines like a dream. That's why I use a lot of this in my projects lately, even my kitchen counters actually. So we've got a really bright space in there. There's a lot of white going in. The white oak comes in though, and it just adds a nice organic, earthy tone, a little bit of texture. Just makes everything feel more welcoming and just less sterile. And I really like that look, that combination in there. And white oak is as American as it gets, okay? It was used in all sorts of colonial era furniture. It was used in naval shipbuilding of the 1700s and 1800s. And you like bourbon, okay? Bourbon's distinctly American, right? And the go-to wood for making bourbon barrels is American white oak. That's because this stuff it's watertight, and then there is something magical in here that helps give Kentucky straight bourbon that iconic color and flavor as it ages. So what's not to like about this stuff, right? So I want to show you some tips about how to work with this, and especially how to finish it, because customers come to us every week and they go, hey, I really like the color of white oak. How do I finish it so it doesn't yellow or not darken up? I want to keep this natural color. So the good news is I've got a few options for you there. So let's get to work. White oak is hard stuff, right? But that's what makes it so satisfying to build with. While it's not necessarily difficult to work with, it does require some extra care and some attention. So here's a few tips for you. And the first one is sharp blades are just non-negotiable, okay? That's your table saw blade, miter saw blade, jigsaw, router bits. Just dull tools will give you burns, chatter, and headaches, and I don't want you to have any one of those. So if you're having those issues, check the blade, swap it out for a nice sharp one. That's just going to save you so much trouble. Second, when you're using a router, take shallow incremental passes. Going too deep in one shot can just lead to splinters and blowouts that are, first of all, they're going to give you a jolt. Second of all, they're going to give you a problem you just need to fix. So just don't take off too much at one time. And the third one is sanding. You just need to work progressively through each grit. Start at 80 or 100, go to 120, and end at 150. With white oak, there's usually no need to go any higher than that to achieve a really smooth, beautiful finish. And then for those of you who like your hand tools, right? Your chisels, hand planes, carving tools. Look, as long as you get a good night's rest, eat a big breakfast, and keep sharp edges, shaping white oak by hand is totally manageable. So those are my tips for you. Now, when you go shopping for white oak lumber, you're gonna find it pre-sorted for you into flat sawn, quarter sawn, or rift sawn. Each one of these brings something to the table for you. Flat sawn's the most common one. It's the easiest to cut from a log. You get the widest boards possible. You get that classic oak look. And it's the cheapest one of these three. These other two are more rare and they're more expensive. Quarter sawn white oak is really cool stuff. It's known for those stunning flake patterns that you get in your boards. So when the sawmill cuts the log just right, the sliced medullary rays reveal those one-of-a-kind patterns that you just don't get in other woods. And rift sawn is even rarer than that because it's actually a byproduct of those other two cuts. Therefore, it takes longer for a sawmill to accumulate and the boards are just narrow. But you know, if you're after a sleek, sophisticated look, rift sawn straight, tight grain is perfect for elegant, modern designs. And then because of its scarcity, rift sawn white oak is the most expensive option. But here's an insider tip for you, okay? When you go to the lumber store to pick out some white oak, you can often find some rift sawn mixed into the quarter sawn and the flat sawn piles. You just got to look at the end grain, and that's going to give you some clues, okay? If the growth rings run at a nice steep angle like this to the face and the back, you're looking at a nice rift sawn board that has good straight grain. But if the rings arch across the width, that's going to be a flat sawn board. And then if the rings are just perpendicular to the faces, you're looking at a quarter sawn piece of wood there. So what happens is just that sometimes at the mill, when they're sorting it, they just miss some boards and they get mixed in, and it's just to your advantage. Speaking of all that, go back to my kitchen counter real quick. Originally, I wanted to use rift sawn white oak for that and make it with 2 waterfall ends, okay? But in order to pull that off, I needed a little bit of a miracle here. Riffs on white oak, 1.5 inch thickness or thicker, and I needed at least 16-foot lengths in order to make that waterfall effect with continuous grain. I mean, easier said than done here, because I tried 3 different suppliers. None of them had it, except for one was able to come with something close with 8/4 sawn white oak, but in 14-foot lengths. And I decided I was going to make that work, and on one of the waterfall sides, I just made that float and just not go all the way to the floor. Simple solution, it works. And then I finished it off by just applying a couple coats of wood oil to enhance the natural color of the wood and darken it up a little bit. And then to protect it, I put down a nice coating of wood butter. I just love the look of this. I love how the earthy tone and the organic texture bring a nice warm contrast to the otherwise white kitchen space. Just makes it less sterile and more welcoming. All right, with those out of the way, let's go take care of some finishing, all right? If you're aiming to keep white oak looking light and natural, or just as if there's no finish on it at all, oil-based finishes are pretty much off the table, okay? Now this includes finishes like polyurethane, tung oil, varnish, etc., all right? Here's what's going on with those is that oil-based finishes, they work wonders on darker woods like walnut, for example. They bring out rich tones, they enhance the grain, they provide some contrast. They look wonderful on dark woods, but they have this natural amber tint that can turn white oak a lot warmer and just more yellow than you might want instead of that fresh, raw look that we're after. So there are a few ways to go here. My first recommendation is this stuff right here, okay? This is General Finishes, water-based, high-performance top coat in a flat sheen. All right, yes, it's a total mouthful, but this stuff works great. And here's what it brings to the table. So first of all, you get that unfinished, raw look with all the protection of a solid top coat. Plus there's no VOCs. You get this easy cleanup with just soap and water, and it's super fast drying. You can do like 4 or 5 coats of this before lunchtime, all right? Now let's talk application. You want to use a foam brush and then apply it in single passes and then overlap each pass just a little bit, like maybe 1/4 inch to 1/2 inch or so. Let it dry for about 30 minutes or more. Then you sand it smooth and repeat that for at least 3 coats, maybe 4 coats. So here's the thing, all right? The first couple of coats are just gonna look and feel really crappy, just not that great. This finish, it raises the grain and it's really uneven when it dries, especially in that first coat. But this is just one of those trust the process type of moments. By the time you get to the 3rd or 4th coat, it'll even out, it dries beautifully at that point, and it gives you a nice silky smooth finish. Plus it's a very protective finish. It's great for furniture that's gonna see a lot of use. If you're looking for something a little simpler, okay, check out Rubio Monocoat. This is a 1-coat finish, which makes it super convenient, and it's a hard wax oil, so it offers really nice protection for your project. The trade-off here is it adds a touch of color to the wood and enhances the grain slightly, so it's a bit of a different vibe than the water-based top coat, but it's really gorgeous on white oak as long as you pick the right color. So I'd steer you to one of these 3, okay? Either smoke 5%, white 5%, or natural. My preference is usually the natural, but a lot of our guys that work for us, they prefer smoke or white. I should point out this is pretty expensive stuff, so I don't recommend you apply this with a rag or something like that where the finish will soak up into it. Instead, apply it with an old credit card or something like a Bondo scraper, Bondo applicator, and that will really maximize your coverage. Moving on to quarter sawn white oak, instead of a light, subtle finish, I'm going to show you a different approach. The deal is adding some color to the wood is what gives it contrast because the flecking doesn't absorb the same way that grain does. So here's what I do. I start with a black grain filler. This is a water-based filler from Timbermate. It's easy to work with and it dries really fast. So you basically just scrub it into the grain, you let it dry, and then sand off the residue from the surface. And that leaves you with the filler packed right into the grain, and you can see already that it makes the fleck patterns just really stand out. And then I like to follow it with an oil finish. And I know I said oils are just a no-go earlier, but quarter sawn white oak is an exception in my opinion. Here the goal is to slightly darken the wood which makes those fleck patterns just pop out even more. So the combination of that wood filler and the oil, it's just a great combination that's really refined looking in my opinion. All right, so thanks for watching. My name is Mark, I'm from Woodworkers Source. We sell woods like this to people just like you, all right? Come visit us at any one of our 3 stores in Arizona, Phoenix, Tempe, Tucson. Check out our website, woodworkersource.com. You can order online, we'll ship it right to your door, or you can pick it up in store. Doesn't matter, we would love to help you out, all right? So anyway, if you got any questions, post them below. With that, man, see you on the next one.